Alrighty, everybody. Welcome back to the Journeyman Sports Podcast. Today, got another tier list episode for you guys. This one is going to be for the NFL head coaches. Thought this would be something a little bit different, kind of fun to mess around with. Wanted to go just kind of explain briefly what my criteria is for this. I'm gonna go. If there are coaches that have been in the league for several years, I'm going to go off of just kind of overall record, the culture that they've built, signings and drafting, and some of these guys, when the chips have been down, injuries, stuff like that, how they've been able to react. So some different criteria here, but excited for this one. Hope that you guys enjoy it and start off, funny enough, with the Saints head coach, Dennis Allen. This is Cade's team, so, I'm sure he would agree with me here. He's not been one of the better coaches this year. The Saints did get a win today against, and pull this up real quick. They did get a win today over, where is it? What the heck? Over the Eagles at Philadelphia. That moves them to 7-9. They stay in the playoff hunt. Saints have been, kind of nothing special this year. Cade, I'm sure, can attest to that. They are in the hunt. They do have potential to still win this division. Tampa Bay, if they do end up winning against the Panthers, which it's looking like they're going to, that certainly does not help the Saints' case, but Dennis Allen has been nothing special this year. We've seen the offense has not been crazy. Hard to fill Sean Payton's shoes. I'm going to put him in C tier for right now. I don't think he is the worst of the worst. I also don't think he's a guy that you would ideally want to start your franchise with. So next up, we got New England Patriots, Bill Belichick. This would be, an easy one to just say you want to stick an S tier. I'm going to put him into A tier. I think we've seen New England has struggled since Tom Brady's left. They haven't been a perfect team. We know the success he had when Brady was there. It's looking like this week they are going to beat the Miami Dolphins. But Patriots this year are, I believe, they win this game, they'll move to 8-8, have a chance to win. Maybe get in the playoffs if they win their game in week 18, but we've seen the struggles that they've had, especially on offense. Matt Patricia as the OC certainly doesn't help the offense get built, but I would like to say, a lot of this is because of his past. I still think any team would like Bill Belichick coaching their team, know how good he's been. I hope that he stays with the Patriots. I hope they continue to build, get back. We've seen them be really good at times, and then they've looked unpatriot-like. So I'm going to keep Bill Belichick in A tier for right now. Next, I'm going to go with Dan Campbell. I'm going to put Dan Campbell into A tier. No, I'm going to put him into B to start. Dan Campbell is an interesting one. I think that it's just hard to pick. He's been really good this year. We saw his first year with Detroit was a little bit rough. They were a struggling team. Not exactly. They're still not the best team on paper. I do think we've seen, we saw them get hot. We saw the little winning streak that they did go on. Move my computer real quick. Lighting is freaking tweaking. We saw what they were able to do this year. They're 8-8 right now, I believe. They still have a chance to make the playoffs. I'm not sure exactly how good their chances are just because of all the outside factors. But Dan Campbell, with what I've seen, I know that that's a guy you would just love to play for. He just makes you want to run through a wall. We've seen it from his opening press conference. We saw it on Hard Knocks. I mean, he's a good dude. He wants to win. He loves the game of football, and he lives, eats, sleeps, and breathes it. And we're starting to see some of the success pay off for the Lions this year. His ability to keep Jared Goff on the team, they've drafted very, very well. And I think he's a solid B tier. I definitely think You could argue A tier for this year, but trying to go off the sort of collective body of work to say it. But yeah, as of right now, we're gonna put more stock into current. We're gonna move Bill Belichick down to B tier as well. Next up is Todd Bowles for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Gonna put this into C tier. He just hasn't been, it's hard with Bruce Arians leaving. Well, not leaving, he's still in the front office. I still think he plays a rather large part in what they do, but we've seen a big dip in the offense. They're like 28th or something in the league. Not a lot of injuries have been because they've struggled because of some of the injuries. We saw people left. Tom Brady's been okay this year, nothing special, but I think he still has the talent. We've seen the defense has still been pretty solid all year, kept them in a lot of games. The defense is kind of the saving grace here for me. I think Todd Bowles still has a lot of potential as an NFL head coach. I think he's going to stay with Tampa Bay for the foreseeable future. And yeah, nothing too crazy, bad or good about him. Would like to see a step up in the offense, which we've seen in the Carolina game. They've aired the ball out a lot, but Todd Bowles is a solid C tier for me right now. Next up is Pete Carroll. This is also going to be a C tier for me. We know the hot start, the surprising start that Seattle got off to. The biggest thing for me right now is how well they nailed their last draft. Almost all those guys are starting, contributing. They're setting up the future. And I'm not sure how long Pete Carroll will necessarily stay in Seattle, potential retirement, all that, but I really like what he's done with them. I think they've just kind of fallen back down to their expectations and fallen back down to earth. He's made Geno Smith a guy. I really respect him, especially his past work with Seattle, but this year, I'm just going to put him in C tier. Don't think he's done anything special really with Seattle. So C tier for Pete Carroll. Next up is Brian Daboll. This one is an A tier. Giants have far exceeded their expectations. A lot of that, we've seen big props to him with what he's done with Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones is starting to look like an NFL quarterback. He's looking like a professional. Just cut the turnovers out of his game. You've seen him really be able to run the ball. And, the Giants, no one expected them to be in the playoffs. They just clinched against the Colts. So, he's come in, changed the culture, and he's another guy similar to Dan Campbell where I just don't see how you wouldn't want to play for a guy like that. And the way that he's come in, he's helped transform the whole team, the organization. This is an easy A for Brian Daboll. Next up is Matt Eberflus, the Chicago Bears. I'm going to stick him into C tier. He's not had a lot to work with as a defensive coach. That's not exactly the trend that the NFL is going in. NFL is more favoring towards the offensive mind. And, there's not a lot in Chicago. They traded their two best defensive players, Robert Quinn, Roquan Smith. Justin Fields has taken steps up this year, which is exactly what makes me put Matt Eberflus into C tier. Justin Fields, while, still leaves a little bit to be desired passing the ball, we've seen him really lean into his strengths for running. I'm pretty sure he's going to set the NFL record for QB rushing yards in the season. Justin Fields has looked better and better this year. They still got a lot of work to do with some of their drafting and free agency moves, but I think Matt Eberflus, he's doing the best he can with what he has, and that is definitely limited. So C tier for Chicago Bears. Nathaniel Hackett, this one is self-explanatory. D, F, whatever you want to call it. Just not a good head. It's pretty self-explanatory. He got fired through 15 games. There was just nothing really to like there. So that one's pretty self-explanatory. Next up, John Harbaugh. This will be a B tier for me. Actually, we're going to put him into A. Put him into A tier. he's been able to keep the Ravens. I believe they clinched for the playoffs. Lamar's been in and out all year. Tyler Huntley's been able to step in. They've kept the system going. They're going to the playoffs again. And John Harbaugh, he's just a great coach. He's seen it in the past. He continues to show exactly what he can do. And he's another guy where he's a great dude. He's a great coach, great guy to play for. He's kept the Ravens afloat throughout numerous injuries the past couple seasons. And yeah, I really like what he's done with this team. So A tier for John Harbaugh. Cliff Kingsbury, I'm gonna put in the D. F tier. Just not very good. Yeah, just not much to say about him. I mean, they had the one crazy good start where they went 9-0 or 10-0, something like that. But ever since then, especially whenever the deck is not stacked directly in his favor, we've seen exactly the type of coach he is. He folds like a cheap suit, and I think he should be fired by the Cardinals, and I think they should move on from him. Yeah, just nothing, not a lot to like with Cliff Kingsbury. Now, this, I'm not entirely sure who that is. That looks like Matt LaFleur, I'm guessing, for the Packers. Put him into B tier. We know the start they got off to this year. He's been really good ever since he's been there. It's looking like with the Commanders' loss today to the Browns that Green Bay is pretty much in control of their own destiny going into the playoffs. Another slow start they got off to, but they've bounced back. They've kept themselves steady, and they've given themselves a chance despite everything that's kind of gone wrong for them to still have a chance to make the playoffs. So I respect that a lot. I think he's earned the trust of his players, the organization, and I think he's a good coach that a lot of teams would be lucky to have. So Matt LaFleur will go into B tier for me. Lovie Smith, it's a D. It's on the verge. I mean, the Texans, there's not a lot there. He's done like everything that he can to try and get them to win. Just don't think they've competed with a lot of really good teams, but at the end of the day, you are 2-in whatever for a reason. They just got throttled today by the Jags. Let's go. So yeah, we'll just stick him in the D tier for now. Mike McCarthy is an interesting one. I'm gonna put him into B tier. I think he's held Dallas in a good spot. I don't think he's going to progress them forward a lot. I also don't think he's going to hurt you as a head coach. I like Mike McCarthy. I think he's a solid coach. I think you could do better, but what he's done in Dallas is good. They're 12-4. They're getting over the hump. We're starting to see them play better, and they've had to deal with some injuries. And I think their offense has kind of evolved this year, and a large part of that is because he's really started to lean into the run game. We know what they've done on the defense because of, why can I not remember his name? The defensive coordinator for, holy cow. He was the old Falcons head coach. I'm sure a lot of you guys out there know who I'm talking about. Holy cow, I'm sorry, I had to look this up. This is going to frustrate me. Dan Quinn, that's it. God, that was a brain fart moment. But a lot of the defense has been because of Dan Quinn. Kellen Moore is a great OC, but you got to have the right head coach in place. I think Mike McCarthy's done his job pretty well. So next up is Mike McDaniels. This would have been through the first 10 or 11 weeks of the season. This would have been A. It's fallen down into the B tier. I've just had some really mid play. He's not coached outstandingly. Had several games they should have won, but they haven't. And it's looking now, them losing to the Patriots, like they might not make the playoffs. So it's, he's got all the talent in the world there. I think he's learning as he goes, but I think he has a lot of potential, and I would not say he's a bad coach by any means. I think he's just got to keep learning and progressing through the NFL coaching system. So Mike McDaniels is a B. I think this could be an A. You could argue, but I'm going to stick him in B. Next up, Buffalo Bills head coach. That is an easy S tier. Why am I blanking on his name? Sean McDermott. Jeez, I'm struggling today. Sean McDermott, he's got Buffalo as one of the best teams in the NFL. They are one of the teams to beat in the AFC. They won their division again. They're on a great trajectory. He's done everything right since he's gotten there. They've made good signings. They've drafted well. And he's built a good culture, a good team around his quarterback, which is a big thing for a lot of NFL coaches. So that's an easy S tier for me with Sean McDermott. Next up, I have Josh McDaniels. This one's going to be a D for me just because of all the close games that they've lost. Some of it, sure, on the players' execution, but a lot of it is game plan. When you get up in those big games, you can't just take your foot off the gas pedal. And I think that's been a big struggle. We know from his first coaching stint with the Broncos, it was nothing to be, praised for. But I think he's done a little bit better with the Raiders. I think he's earned himself another year, at least. We know he kind of has to because the Raiders don't exactly have the money to release him. So he's one I'm going to keep my eye on next year, especially without Derek Carr now. It'll be interesting to see what happens with him and with the Raiders. So he'll stick in D to F tier. I think he could B and C. He could find himself in the C tier, but he's going to be here for now. Sean McVay, they've had everything go wrong this year. I'm going to put him into B tier. I still think he's one of the great minds in the NFL. His coaching tree speaks for itself. We know what he can do when he has, I don't want to say the right pieces, but when they are healthy, we know what they can do. He's a Super Bowl winner last year. You don't do that by mistake, no matter how good of a team you are. So Sean McVay, still high on him, but he's going to walk into B tier for right now. Kevin O'Connell is going to be an S tier for me. Okay, and Buccaneers win the NFC South. So sorry, Saints fans. Sorry, Cade. Tough break, but GOAT strikes again. Anyways, back to this. He's been very good since he's gotten into Minnesota. We know they're almost undefeated in one-score games. They find new ways to win, it seems like, every single week. And it amazes me how they do it. It's unique. I don't exactly know if it's going to translate to the playoffs, but they have been very good, very well coached. He's changed the culture. And, he's furthered Justin Jefferson. He's helped the offense take the next step. And yeah, Minnesota's played up to their standards finally. So S tier right there. Doug Peterson. A lot of people are going to be mad. A tier. I don't want to hear the Jaguar bias or anything like that. I think he's A tier. He's been really good. He's changed the culture. We've seen the steps that Trevor Lawrence has taken, the defense, the running game, everything. They're learning how to win. There's a pretty probable chance that we make the playoffs. We go from a team with the number 1 pick in the draft to making the playoffs. That's a pretty solid turnaround, if you ask me. I think a large part of it is because of Doug Peterson. That alone, going from the worst team in the league, having the number 1 pick, to making the playoffs in the same season, I think that's enough to warrant an A tier for Doug Peterson. Next up, Frank Reich. This is going to be, he got fired, so I feel like we had to put him into the F tier. I don't know if he's a great head coach. I think he's a good offensive mind, play caller, but I don't know exactly if he'll get another head coaching gig. He'll definitely still be in the league, but as a head coach, I just don't think it really shakes out. And, he did get fired ultimately for a reason. So yeah, next up is Andy Reid. This is an easy S tier. Don't even have to ask. We know what he's done throughout his whole career, especially in Kansas City with Mahomes. This year, they lose their best weapon in Tyreek Hill, one of the best players in the league. Still one of the top offenses, still won their division. Mahomes might win the MVP. So Andy Reid is a large part of that success, and he's made sure that that offense has taken no steps back. Easy S tier for Andy Reid. Next up, Matt Rule. This is another F. Just he got fired. It's self-explanatory. Ron Rivera, going to put into the C tier. We've seen Washington, they've been up and down his whole time there. I think he's built a solid culture amongst all of the allegations with Dan Snyder, everything kind of going wrong, quarterback cycle again. Ron Rivera is a great leader of men. He's a great locker room guy. Good. He knows the game of football. But I think there's a lot of guys you would take over him. They've had chances to make runs at the playoffs like this year. They haven't exactly taken advantage. Been solid drafting, nothing really in the free agent. So Ron Rivera will find himself in C tier for me. Robert Saleh, I'm going to put into the B tier. He came into New York as a defensive mind. This year, we've really seen that defense take off. He's done, we talked about it in the Jets video a little bit. I think he's earned himself still time there. They just got to find the quarterback. They've drafted very, very well. The defense is starting to turn up. They're a top 5 unit in the league. They just got to get the offense squared away. And, there's been some injuries that have happened, but once they get the quarterback situation figured out and we see what he can do on the offensive side, that could swing him up to an A. But for this year, I think he's been in the B tier. Kyle Shanahan, another S tier. It again, pretty self-explanatory. They always win. They've made great moves. They drafted really well, as we're seeing with Brock Purdy. All their guys turn out. They play defense. They play offense. I mean, San Francisco, ever since he's gotten there, has been a masterclass on how to run an organization. So can't speak highly enough of him. 49ers they're winning. Next up is Nick Sirianni of the Eagles. Holy cow, I cannot zoom out. That will be another S tier. The Eagles, last year they made the playoffs. They weren't supposed to. This year they've come in. I think a lot of people thought they were going to be good. I figured they would be a playoff team. I did not see them winning their division and going, if Jalen Hurts wouldn't have gotten injured, I think they'd probably finish the season with at least one loss. I think they'd probably go 16-1. And Gardner Minshew came in, played okay past couple games, but I really like the way Sirianni coaches, the culture he's building, the dog mentality. He's easy S tier for me. Next up, Arthur Smith, I think is this guy's name, Falcons coach. I'm just going to put him into I just don't think they've done anything remarkably well. They've drafted okay since he's been there. Drake London and Kyle Pitts are the main kind of guys, but haven't brought anything in. They seem like they're constantly just stuck in a middle gear, which we've talked about a lot on the podcast before, but I think he's just a guy. I think he's easily replaceable, and that's why he's going to find himself onto there in the D and F tier. Next up, Brandon Staley. This is going to be controversial. I'm going to put him in the B tier. I think if the Chargers would have missed the playoffs again, he would have been in the C. They clinched. They're doing their thing. He's going to find himself in the B tier for me. He just makes a lot of boneheaded moves in my opinion. A lot of the moves that he makes, going for it a lot, he seems to really just not think. I think he leans too much into this to like statistics and the next gen stats, all that kind of stuff. I think at the end of the day, you just have to have a feel for the game more so than he does, and you got to feel the game more so than looking at if I get this, it gives me a whatever percent chance to win. I think sometimes you just got to have a better feel for the game, get away from those advanced statistics and make your own kind of decisions. So it's going to put him in B tier. I think he could be C. He also could be A. I mean, he's a guy that swings on me a lot. So B tier for right now. Kevin Stefanski will also be a B tier. We know what he has done in the past with the Browns. This year, they got Deshaun back. They're probably going to finish with, they won today, which is a good win against Washington on the road. Deshaun Watson looked better today. He had his best game since he's been back by far, throwing for 169 and 3 touchdowns and 31 rushing yards. So, I mean, it's still nothing outstanding from him, but I think he's built a good culture there. I would think they're going to be a team to beat next year. They're going to be pretty solid going forward. So I like the direction that the Browns are going, and they built a good team, drafted pretty well, signed pretty good free agents. And when the chips have been down, he's managed to keep the team together pretty well. So Zach Taylor for the Bengals, I'm going to put in A tier. Earlier in the season, they were kind of a mess, Super Bowl hangover, but week 5 or 6, he finally decided, I have a great quarterback. I have great receivers. Let's stop throwing the ball so short. And we've seen exactly what's happened since they made that change. He stepped up. As a coach, he's played great, obviously drafted very well, signed great free agents, got them to a Super Bowl last year. I think they are the team to beat in the AFC again this year. And the way that he's been able to build up that team has been great. And he finally, I think, has taken that step into A tier this year. So good for Zach Taylor and the Bengals. Mike Tomlin is next up. I'm going to put him into B tier as well. Just nothing, they found ways to win games. He's always going to be a good coach. I think they've drafted not amazing in the last couple of years. They find ways to win, and that's a big part of why he's on here. Their defense is always spectacular, and the culture that he's built there is great. So find himself into B tier. And so will our last coach, Mike Vrabel. I really like Mike Vrabel. I think he's a good coach. They always deal with a shit ton of injuries. It's just crazy to me. But he doesn't blow me away. I think he's in a very similar kind of coaching style with the culture building of a Dan Campbell, Brian Dable, Robert Saleh, kind of the guys you really like to play for, players coach. But, we've seen them really fall off a cliff this year towards the back half. They started off really well, but they have not finished well. A big part of this will depend on what happens next week in Jacksonville. I think he'll be in Tennessee for the foreseeable future, but I think he's right in the middle of all those coaches. So let me know in the comments what you guys think about my picks, some of the biggest surprises to you, what you guys think I got right and wrong. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Got more content coming starting the new year. Happy New Year's to everybody. We're really excited for 2023. Everything is going to bring for us. We've got lots of big stuff on the way, and we can't wait for you guys to see everything that's coming. So we're super pumped. We can't wait. Make sure to like, subscribe, keep sharing, and help the channel grow. So thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you all are having a happy new year and enjoying the Sunday football. So this has been it for the NFL head coaches tier list and for the Journeyman Sports Podcast. We will see you next time.